Well, hello, it's Robyn Levin with Real Stories with real people like Robert Fulton, who is a new author and a helicopter pilot. He has flown over 300 combat missions in Vietnam in 365 days. So anyway, he has a lot of stories, not just about that, but his career as 4 decades as a helicopter pilot. We're going to take a look into some of those exciting and scary maneuvers. What made you decide to become a helicopter pilot of all career choices?
All I wanted to be is an airplane pilot, fly fighters. I was a boy building models and reading the biography of Eddie Rickenbacker and imagining myself flying around the world one day. But I joined the U.S. Army when they were in desperate need of helicopter pilots during Vietnam. When I reported, I said I was there to fly airplanes. I'd like an assignment with a twin-engine airplane. Of course, they didn't even hear what I said. You're going to helicopters. And that was the end of that. So I became a helicopter pilot. I had had a small airplane before I got in the Army, and I thought flight school would be a piece of cake. But about the only thing I knew about flying was how to read a map from what the airplane taught me. The helicopter was so different.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so Robert was telling me a little bit about, for those of you that are familiar with Top Gun, the aircraft that he flew was the Cobra.
Cobra gunship, yes. And
what is that considered in your language, in your world?
Well, at the time, it was an amazing helicopter because they'd just been hanging guns on the slower Hueys and smaller helicopters, not designed at all for this mission. And so when the Cobra came out, it was actually designed to be a gunship. So it had short wings with rocket pods, a minigun, one pilot behind the other, and closed glass canopy, and it would go 190 in a dive.
So you could not rely on instrumentation, it was all visual?
It was all visual. We had instruments and we could go into the weather and did on occasion.
But it's not like you had a choice of weather conditions.
No, you just put up with it, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was 1 year out of your life, and then you had several decades of this.
Yeah.
So Robert flew life flight for a while as well. That must have been pretty, well, how would you describe when you knew that you had patients on board? Did that affect your mindset?
It did. In the beginning, almost all the helicopter pilots and some of these new applications were Vietnam veterans like myself. There were a lot of us. So we had the war mentality that I just recently mentioned in Vietnam, where you just dealt with the weather as it came, and you had a rescue mentality, whether you were trying to kill the enemy or take medevac ships, cover them going in and out, getting wounded soldiers. So we brought that with us to the civilian hospital mission. Right. And that turned out initially it had to be modified, because that kind of determination in the civilian world, full of wires, buildings, all kinds of other obstacles, and a regular aviation structure caused a lot of accidents initially. People were feeling the pressure of rescuing the patient.
Oh my! So that would interfere for sure with flying the aircraft.
Right. It was with that kind of an attitude, you tend to press the weather, press your fuel, overlook things that would maybe give you a second thoughts.
And nowadays, it's not done that way.
Right.
You as the pilot doesn't have access to.
No. When I started back in say about 1990 or 1989, I guess. Gosh, 1988. We still had that thing going, but they eventually got rid of they cut the pilot out of
communication or
hearing the communication about the patient, knowing anything about the patient, so they could make their aviation decisions totally
independent.
Right.
Right. Okay. So in Robert's book called Up in the Air, A Pilot's Journey, he takes you through lots of different scenarios, harrowing experiences, including somehow navigating through power lines, and in the darkness, you were telling me, the lights went out one evening and you had to fly in the dark and didn't know where the power lines were?
Right. A major obstacle.
Without giving it all away.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit.
I was sent into a hospital that I had never seen in the daytime or the nighttime. There was a massive high tension tower with huge cables crossing across into Canada, across a river, and the little hospital sat right next to the river and tucked in up against the tower. I was told when I went they were all marked with strobe lights, had been for years, and there was never a problem. But we got there, we couldn't find the strobe lights. We saw the hospital. We knew the towers were there, but I had no idea where they were, and no one could really tell me without the strobe lights on. So we kind of felt our way, when we left the hospital, we felt our way out of there, and it turned out to be quite exciting.
Exciting in a way you probably didn't really want.
Right.
Thankfully, he's here today to tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you.
Yes. So, Robert, as many veterans, unfortunately, have at some point suffered from PTSD. And is this book that you've recently written part of your therapy, would you say? Would it help?
I would say it started that way. There were a couple of incidences in Vietnam that took me at least 30 years so I could even get it down on paper, but I kept trying. Wrote down the one incident. It was about 11 pages, and it kind of sat there for a while. I played with it, tried to make it so that it was, well told. And then I wrote about more experiences I had in Vietnam, and behold, I had a chapter. And since I'd done such a variety of things and had reinvented myself out of necessity, I thought, well, maybe I have some more stories. So I started writing more chapters, and over a period of time, I accumulated about 5 chapters with my different experiences in the Arctic, learning to fly and so on. And then I came in contact with a publisher who challenged me to finish the book, and I promised them in 4 months I'd have a completed manuscript, and I did the other 5 chapters. The first chapter is called 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, and it's about my Arctic experience, a single experience in the Arctic on my first civilian job, and flying off a ship in the high Arctic. Then I have From the Beginning, which talks about my interest in flying and how I got my private license and how I got in the Army and Army flight school. Show Me the Wood is a chapter on logging.
Right. And for those, you're going to learn real fast about logging and why that's Robert's favorite part of flying.
Yeah, I consider it a top skill set in the helicopter business.
Right.
But it doesn't happen overnight. It took me, they say it takes 4 years to be really good at it, and I'd say that's about right.
Just explain what logging is.
Logging is picking up logs that have been cut and limbed, generally from a mountainside, where all the trees haven't been cut down, only certain ones. And there's someone on the ground putting a load together that will weigh the maximum amount of weight.
Which could be up to how many pounds?
Well, depending on the size of the helicopter. So there's helicopters that pick up 20,000. A lot of them pick up 4. The one I was flying picked up 6,000 pounds. So that's 3 tons.
By yourself.
Just you.
Just you, and then you have to lower down this huge hook that weighs what, 150 pounds?
Yes.
That one person is holding.
Yeah, it's on a 250 foot cable, and the hook on the end can be released in the on the stick. So when you have a load, you don't release it from the helicopter, you release it from that hook down below.
Okay.
So you have to thread it through all these trees, bring it into the and seconds count, because a second of a helicopter expense is quite a bit of money, and it adds up. So you can't come in and hover, look around, lower the hook down. You're coming in, throwing the hook, putting it, when you get good at it, into the hand of the person that's gathering, which we call the hooker, and he hooks the load on, and then you leave. And again, you don't come all the way up and clear the trees. You start down the mountainside, so you're weaving the load in between trees. And of course, you don't want to wrap the cable around a tree, because that means the helicopter is going to come down quick. And there are, rotten snags and other things that are hazards, and you have people to watch out for. So you take this down the mountain, generally not more than a mile, to a road where you land it, and someone takes it, unhooks it. But you don't stop when you just lay it down, turn around, go right up the mountain again.
So I would say Robert's a thrill seeker, right?
No, not. I never thought of myself that way, but I do like it.
Judging from his career.
I do like a challenge.
Well, for those of you that are thrill seekers and aviation enthusiasts, and you've enjoyed the video, check his book out. It's very exciting. You can go to his website and pre-order it.
Yes, my website is a pilotjourney.com, and you can register there for the book.
He also speaks around the country on all kinds of topics like team building, which you can imagine from logging, he could figure that out.
Right.
Team building and how to navigate your career at any age, even when you are not quite ready for retirement, but you're forced into retirement. So
That would be exactly right.
definitely check it out. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Robyn.
Bye for now.